that's why I wanted to write the addiction intervention book, because what it started was when the pandemic happened, I was trying to figure out how to reach people. And so I did this 21-day virtual summit, right, with all these professionals around the country and 44 speakers. And I'm like, man, that was a lot of good wisdom. And my heart is for interventions, right? And seeing people and families free. So then I thought, why don't oh yeah, I remember I went through this program like a year ago, and it talked about interviewing other experts in your field. One creates a commonality and a bond between experts, right? But then also gives people a variety to see, how the heck can I move through this obstacle in my life? So I interviewed about 20 interventionists and narrowed it down to the 10 in the book, because they had different flavors to how they help families, and they live in different parts of the country. So it's, different locations and things, but every single person in the book has a passionate story about why they like to help people, just like myself. And they have a process on how they help people, just like myself. And through a lot of that, I became better at what I do, but I also want to help other interventionists be better at what they do by learning some new skills or some new angles to an intervention. And then also, it's kind of threefold. It's to help interventionists be better at what they do, to help like therapists and counselors and pastors and lay people that are on the front lines, and they have no clue really what to do with a person with addiction or even an intervention per se. And then just to give the family some hope. It says, because we share stories all through the book. Each interventionist shares stories about people they helped. I share stories. I have a lot of quotes in there from clients and families I've helped, but it's to say, wow, these people got through it. Even though right now my brain is telling me there is no way that my husband, wife, daughter, grandmother, whomever is ever going to break free from this addiction, because they're stuck, and I'm just going to sit back and wait until they hit bottom. Well, one of my philosophies I talk about in the book is that I want to bring the bottom up to your loved one and your family, so they don't have to hit bottom. If they want to choose to hit bottom, guess what? They can look back on, I'll just say, this day today in their life, and they can reflect back on it. And whether they chose to get help or they chose to kind of say, forget all of you, I'm out, I'm not doing this, and their life got worse, they can at least look back and say, man, my family really tried. They weren't shaming, they weren't yelling at me. They did it in a loving way to give me choices. And I chose live out of a trash bag and in my car instead of go get some help and change my life. And so at least the family knows they did all they could do. And then the loved one says, hey, I chose option A, B, or C. And I chose C because that's what I want to do. I wasn't ready yet. But eventually, some people, if they don't want help on the day one, they'll call me a week later or 5 days later or a month or two later and say, okay, I think I need some help now. And so there's not one, I'll just say this, there's not one way to help the listener struggling with addiction. There's not one way to help the family struggling with addiction, but our brains tell us it will never, ever change, because that's our thought patterns of, well, we'll just wait until Billy loses his company because he's just sleeping around and gambling like crazy and drinking, and eventually it's going to catch up to him. And then he dies and the family regrets it and the coworkers regret it because they're like, well, we didn't think that would happen. And that's the saddest part, when people want to do something, but they don't do anything, and then they regret it because they could have. And those are the really hard ones when I talk to families about that.